friends. I am so excited you're here today because I'm going to be talking about all the books I ended up reading in June. June was definitely a much chiller month than May, but I still got a lot of reading done. I think I read over 20 books or so, which tends to be my usual. I ended up starting the month off with a fun slasher readathon over on Kelsey's Patreon. Kelsey from Slime and Slashers has an awesome Patreon. Almost a patriarch. Not that. Patreon. I will leave linked in the description box down below to go check it out. It's a blast over there. She kicked off the readathon with some fun reading sprints, and we built these little corns, candy corns, actual, like you could do a candy corn or corn stalk, because we're Kelsey corns, and I chose a candy corn, and I did like a cat hat and a beer and a knife, I think. I don't remember what all I did. Maybe I can find the picture and I'll put it up here. But for each prompt that you completed, you got like an accessory and stuff. And you could do 2 of them, but I think I only did enough for the one to make it work. If I focused more, I could have probably done one more, but yeah, I was just reading whatever I had on my Kindle. So I will start off with those books. So every one of these slashers is available on KU as of right now. Summer Never Ends by Judith Sonnet. I ended up giving this one 4 stars. This is kind of a coming of age story about a kid at camp. It starts off like a coming of age story, and then it goes into like a full bloodbath. I liked this a lot, and yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I'm trying to even really remember it. It feels like forever ago. I read these slashers, but it's only been a month. What? So the next one I ended up reading was Night of the Prowler by John Anthon, and this was brutal. This is extreme horror. I knew he wrote extreme horror. I guess I wasn't expecting it to be as extreme. There is a pretty vicious kill scene in this right off the top with a corn cob. So it was very fitting for Kelsey's readathon. I think she ended up reading it as well, and talked about it like, oh my gosh, this is so brutal. There was a really graphic scene with a big ice cube situation, and you're like, oh god, I could have gone without ever reading something like that. But overall, I was like hooked, and I think I read it during a set of sprints. So I read a whole book like in a day, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. And then I ended up reading A Teddy Bear Picnic by Harrison Phillips. This is like a really short little novella. It's very cheesy. It's your typical slasher. It opens up with like 2 teenagers having sex in the woods. You know, the typical thing. And then, yeah, it's typical slasher. You hate the characters in it. The characters are awful. You're kind of rooting for them to die. You're like, okay, when are they gonna get it? Are they gonna die now? That'd be great. But the ending was really interesting, and it kind of went into something that I really like. It's one of my favorite subgenres. I'm not gonna spoil it, but it is probably like my 2nd favorite subgenre of where this went, and I thought it was really interesting and kind of clever. I ended up giving it 3 stars because of that ending was just so great. I'm reading The Cover by Jack Ketchum. I listened to this one on Scribd, so this one is not on KU. I forgot about this one, honestly. I needed an audiobook during this readathon because I did not have any, pretty much. And this is about a guy who comes back from Vietnam, and he's got like PTSD. He's got horrible PTSD, and he ends up hunting these yuppie likes in the woods that are there for like a photo shoot or something. Everybody's very unlikable in this one as well. You're like, these people suck, yeah, kill them, I guess. I don't know. And it was very boring. This is a short book, but it felt so boring, like these people talking, like I don't care. I did not care. It was a situation where it's like, woe is me, I'm so rich, you know, like I cannot get behind that. So I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. And then Dead Girl Blues by David Sodergren. This one is available on KU. I loved it so much. Oh, so great. It is a bit of a longer one. It's not a novella, I don't think. I think it's a full-length novel. It was still so great. It was still fantastic. So this is about a woman who ends up finding a video on a cell phone that is like a snuff film, and a whole mystery unwinds after that. So she has to figure out like who's behind these murders, and all this stuff. And it's very like noir, like film noir inspired, or giallo, excuse me. It's more giallo, like the black gloved killer, those moments of like tension, and like there's a great kill scene where you feel like you're watching it outside of from where it's happening. You feel like you're there, and you're like, oh no, like this is awful, like you were rooting for her, and then this is happening, and it's just like the tension is so good, the gore is so good, it's so disturbing, it's very dark. The ending, what the fuck, David Sodergren. Like, the ending of this like blew me away. But yeah, if you like giallo films, you'll like this one a lot. If you like snuff film books, I guess, or books around that subject, you'll probably enjoy this one. And I ended up giving it 5 stars. And the next slasher I ended up reading was Slasher Witch at the Water Park by Penny Moons. I had a blast with this one. It's available on KU. This is exactly what the title is. There is a witch at the water park, and you know what? She was having a good time for a minute, and then she's not having a good time. Not only is there a witch, well, she has like powers and stuff, so this does lean into like a bit of fantasy, but there's just like so much stuff happening. There's like a giant frog in this, and yeah, some really funny situations happening to people with, I guess, nature kind of reclaiming a water park while you're at the water park, trying to get your water park on, I don't know. But there's some really funny parts in this, and I enjoyed it. It was a nice break from reading like these really intense, gory slashers. I mean, this one had its moments with some unique kills, but it was still like very fun and lighthearted, and I can't wait to read more from Penny Moons, and I gave it 4 stars. The next book I ended up reading was Jack Quaid's Escape from Happydale slasher. This is on KU. I feel like I'm saying that all the time. The only one that is not gonna be, oh no, there's another one that's not gonna be on there, so I should say it is on KU. This ended up being awesome. I gave this 5 stars. I read this in like one sitting, and it's not a novella. I think it's like over 200 pages. I was so hooked. I was very hooked from the beginning of this. It's a very gripping and compelling story. If you like Buffy, you'll like this one because it is kind of done in the way of the Slayer, like you are the Slayer now, but done in a slasher way, like you have to kill slashers instead of vampires. It was great. It was fantastic. There's some great imagery in it. There's just that overall, like, kind of cheese, I guess, like nostalgic cheese, you know, in it that I was loving. I was like, yes, I love this. 5 stars. Hello. The next one is not on KU, and that's Tribesmen by Adam Caesar. I ended up listening to this on Audible because they had a sale on some audiobooks during the time of the slasher readathon. and I think I got it for like $2 and just listened to it. It's a novella. It is about a film crew going to film like an exploitative, like cannibal movie in the jungle, and kind of what happens during that. And it's not what you think. It's not Green Inferno-esque. It's, or even what is it, Cannibal Holocaust. I mean, it talks about that movie in particular because of like what they ended up doing in that one, and how they're trying to kind of go there but do it the right way, but then nothing's done the right way, of course not. No. And it turns into something else. I don't want to give it away because it is very short, but I was like, okay, I see what's going on here. And it was very creepy and weird, like what was going on other than like cannibal stuff. But anyways, I think I gave this one 3 stars. I enjoyed it. It was like a really quick little listen. And then I finished off the slasher readathon with Under the Blade by Matt Serafini. Matt Serafini. I always type this name wrong and say it wrong. But I ended up really enjoying this one. I wasn't too surprised by the reveal though, because I have read Rites of Extinction. And if you have read that one and this one, they're very similar. I wonder if there's like a connection with them. Because I was like, dang, this is really similar to Rites of Extinction. But yeah, I like the beginning of this one. But then it got very crazy and big, as Rites of Extinction does. So I gave this one 4 stars. You guys know I watched some movies, some slasher movies on Tubi. I didn't watch as much as I read. I feel like I definitely read more books than watched the slashers, but I started off with Doom Asylum, which was on Tubi, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. If I remember correctly, I believe this has 2 actresses in it that, well, it's Charlotte from Sex and the City is in this one, and then the woman, I don't know the actress's names off the top of the head, and then the woman that plays Frankenhooker is in this, and I was like, that's so great. Like, I watched it with Alex, and even he was like waiting for me to say it, like, want a date. And I ended up watching Intruder on Tubi, and this was, these are first time watches for me too, so I've never seen these slashers before. This one was so great. This has Sam Raimi in it, like a young Sam Raimi in it. The ending is one of my favorite tropes done in slashers, but I feel like it kind of lost its way when the slasher is revealed, the guy is revealed. Did I just spoil it? When the villain is revealed, I feel like it kind of lacked like move or going forward, so I ended up giving it 3 stars, but the very ending, I was like, yes, this is my favorite, one of my favorite tropes in slashers. And then I ended up watching Motel Hell. I've seen this one on lists before. This is about people that kill people, eat people, that stay in their motel, and it was very funny. There's lots of jokes about cannibalism in this that I was laughing at. I thought that was very funny. This is a great horror comedy, and I enjoyed it, and I gave it 3 stars. And then we did a group watch. We did Hello Mary Lou, Prom Night 2, over on Discord, and I had a blast with it. This was my favorite slasher I watched during this little slasher event. I had a blast watching it with everybody. I was not expecting some of the kills that happened towards the end. The effects were, like, they really went for it. Like, the effects were kind of mind-blowing of some of the stuff they got away with, because it feels very low budget throughout, and then there's like these 3 epic like kills in it, and you're like, oh, okay. And then there's just some great like awkward 80s, is this an 80s movie, I guess? Awkward 80s, 90s stuff that happens in this, and you're like, gross, okay. But yeah, I had a blast with this one. I'm giving it 5 stars. 5 stars for Hello Mary Lou. I am like sweating talking about all of the slasher fun I had. But again, Kelsey's Patreon is going to be linked down below. And I know she's doing another readathon in September. It's going to be carnival themed, so I'm super excited for that one. What am I going to talk about next? Oh yeah, Black and Endless Sky by Matthew Lyons. I ended up picking this for the Pyramid Book Club. If you don't know what the Pyramid Book Club is, it is Alexi, Monica, and Michelle. Michelle's from Michelle's Library, Alexi from Books with Lexi, and Monica from A Little Bit of Monica. I mean, I picked out 3, and this one is the one that was chosen. I didn't vote for this one, personally. The one I voted for is my book club pick for July, Queen of Teeth. But anyways, I was thinking about this book recently because I posted my wrap-up over on my Instagram yesterday. So my wrap-ups over there, everything just moves a little quicker over there. So is up. Somebody asked me how I liked this, and I was like, I hated it. No, I was like, I did not like it. The more I think about it too, the more I didn't like it. I think because as it was happening, or as I was reading it, I was taking notes, and I was like, oh, like comparing it to stuff and bringing up, I guess, why the author chose what happened in this to happen, I guess. But I couldn't like validate it anymore, I guess. So I think I'm leaning towards a 1 star for this one now instead of a 2 star I said during the live show. So this is about a brother and sister who are driving through the desert to drive to their dad's house. And basically, they pick a fight with a bunch of motorcyclists, or a motorcycle gang, and this gang takes revenge on them, and then they find a big hole, and she goes in the hole, doesn't remember, she's acting weird. They never go back to the big hole, by the way. So, yeah, that's Black and Endless Sky. The next book I ended up listening to on Libby is Tell Me Everything by Erica Krauss. This is a memoir about a woman who ended up working for like an insurance agency or a lawyer. She was a PI for a lawyer in insurance industry. No. For an attorney's office, because she has this face where everybody tells her their whole life story immediately when they meet her. They can't do anything but tell her their whole life story, so she gets out some information from people. I did like this book. There's some tough stuff to read in this though, so look up trigger warnings for it. There is essay, mention pedophilia and stuff like that. It is really rough. Some parts, it's very dark stuff this book delves into, and then it's also really frustrating too, like because she has like a really crappy family and it's like she worked so hard to like keep this family in her life when they definitely did not deserve her. So that was like a really frustrating thing to hear somebody try to reconnect or connect or involve their family in their lives when they don't deserve it at all. As for me, because I'm in Aries, I'm like, you screw me over once, like, bye. And yeah, she just wouldn't do that. And like, I guess it comes to it happens in the end for the most part, but this was like, whew, it put me through it. It was like very emotional and sad, and it was a rough read. I'm not gonna sit here and be like, this was like a fun, easy read. No, it's very, very dark. Probably one of the darkest things I've read in a really long time, because I don't read true crime anymore, and I was like, oh, so dark. I don't rate memoirs, but if I did, I would give it 5 stars for sure. And then I ended up reading Everything the Darkness Eats by Eric LaRocca. I had an arc of this one. I actually read it more towards the end of the month. And I did like this. This is so messed up too. This is like a really messed up dark book. And ugh, it's really rough, you guys. Like, there is a scene in this where it felt like I was reading extreme horror. So definitely look up trigger warnings for this one. It is really messed up. It's very weird though, which I really liked. And you could tell it was supposed to be 2 stories, and then it was tied together a little, so that's why I kind of dropped it half a star, just because it felt a bit forced in, but I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. I ended up reading Final Girls by Mira Grant. This was technically supposed to be in my slasher readathon, but when I read it during the slasher readathon, I felt like it really didn't fit in the slasher genre. It was more of a sci-fi book, and this is about like technology for therapists or something to use to like go into something traumatic but not actually to bond with somebody. It was pretty interesting in it, and I did enjoy it, and I gave it 3 stars. And then I read All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. This is another memoir, and I don't rate memoirs, but I did really enjoy this. It was like a fun, I feel like this is a fun memoir. There are serious parts in it, but he narrates it, and there is some like comic relief stuff in it, balanced out with some more tense and heavy subjects. And then I read one of my favorite books of the year, NightBlood by T. Chris Martindale. Why can't I remember this author's name? It's like one of my favorite books I read. I read this for a vampire reading vlog I ended up doing in June. That was my only themed reading vlog I did. Oops. Oops, I definitely dropped the ball on that. But I loved this so much. I did the audio for it. It was a freaking blast. It's a very unique vampire story. It has a lot of action in it, adventure. You're rooting for all the characters in it, and the metaphor used in this as well is done so well, and it's executed perfectly, I feel like. I did think this was going to take place in New York, and it didn't, but I still wasn't disappointed. It's more of a small town vampire story, but it was awesome, and I highly recommend checking it out if you like vampire stories. The next book I ended up reading for the vampire vlog was Nightfall by Suzanne Young. I did enjoy this. It was very atmospheric and fun. It is a YA book. I ended up giving it 3 stars. The only book I didn't end up liking is The Lesser Dead by Christopher Blumen. I listened to the audio for this. It is available on Audible if you're an Audible member, and I did not care for it. It's very boring. This is more of like a memoir of a vampire in New York in the 70s, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. If I look different, I took like a bit of a 20-minute break there to make iced matcha latte. It's so hot here. The next book I ended up reading was The Thief of Always by Clive Barker, and I loved this so much. This was so fun. There is a lot of pictures in this. I read this very quickly. As you can see, the print is very big. This is a middle grade book. This is kind of like his Abarat book for middle grade. I wasn't thinking it was middle grade. It is darker middle grade for sure. It is kind of like The House at the End of the Lane vibes with Coraline vibes, but done in that Clive Barker-esque fantasy way, and I absolutely loved it. It was so great. There is a cute Halloween part in this where I was just like, this is adorable. This is one of like my favorite middle grade books right now. So yeah, I gave it 5 stars for sure. I don't know what I was thinking going into this. I guess with this cover, I was thinking it was one of his adult books. So I was thinking it was going to be very dark and messed up or something, but it wasn't. It was very lighthearted and fun and whimsical, and so good. It was so good. The next book I ended up reading was The Influence by Ramsey Campbell, and I wasn't too impressed by it. This is very melodramatic stuff happening in this. It felt like I was watching one of those like slow mini series on Netflix that tries to draw out like every little thing, and then I did do the audio for it. There is audio on Scribd for it, and it is British, so some of the accents like were a bit much. It was a bit much at moments, but this is about a what do you call it? A couple, a husband and wife. Can I think anymore? That they think their kid is, like, has ran away because she overheard them saying they didn't want her and stuff. Like, this couple has so many issues to begin with. Like, they're constantly fighting over nothing, it seems like. It's just very melodramatic. It felt very drawn out and long. To have a couple of good spooky scenes, I will say that. There is a great scene in a graveyard that happens, and there's some spooky kid stuff that happens in this, ghost stuff. Doll stuff, though, no. So that was a bit disappointing for me, because I did pick this up thinking it was going to be like a doll book, but I ended up giving it 2.5 stars. And then I ended up reading Lone Women by Victor Laval, and I absolutely loved this. I'm trying to get my hands on a physical copy to borrow or to buy used, because I loved this book. I was not expecting to love it, because I have seen mixed reviews about it, but the way this starts, I was hooked. I was so hooked. I was so invested, and I needed to know. So basically, we're following Adeline, who's leaving her town, her small town. It's like the 1800s, and she's going from Texas to Montana to claim some land to grow some food on, because the government is giving land out to anybody that will do farming on it, do agriculture on it, I guess. And this was a real thing that the government did do, and it was a big deal because they were giving women land, which was like unheard of. Also, yeah, black women land. So she was like, yes, I need to do that. My parents just burnt up in a fire. I just had to burn my parents in a fire. Let's go. And there's something in her trunk. By the way, don't touch the trunk. I know it's heavy. Don't touch it. There's something in the trunk, and it's not great. But basically, she ends up in a town where there are some like-minded women there as well to do the same thing for the most part. And what I liked about this story is how he incorporated some folklore from the Midwest during that time, during the frontier times, I guess. There is one of my favorite folklores is about the wind during that time. The women that were on the frontier were slowly driven insane by the sound of the wind. That's like one of my favorite folklore horror movies too, and just, yeah, overall. And he ties that in so well, and it's so subtle, and it's so creepy, and it makes you second guess stuff with Adeline herself, her character herself. And I was just like, hats off, sir, you've done your research. Not that I'm like an expert or anything during frontier times. I just thought it was really interesting. A really interesting, unique story as well. It's about sisters, it's about family, and it's also has some awesome feminist vibes in it. So yeah, I dug this story a lot. I know it has some mixed reviews out there, but I loved it. I gave 5 stars. I haven't given a Lavelle book 5 stars in a minute either. I think it was The Ballad of Black Tom. That was my last 5-star from him. Usually it's just a solid 4, but yeah, I think this one, he didn't get bogged down in the details with it, and it was just a great story. Then I ended up listening to an arc I had from NetGalley, Board Gay Werewolf by Tony Satorella. This is a comedy horror about a gay werewolf, and how he's kind of taken in by an influencer werewolf guy who's like, yeah, we're going to blow up on TikTok or something, or get more werewolves in our crew and stuff, but he's doing it he doesn't have great ethics, I guess is the right term, and our main character is calls him out on it, and there's conflict that happens. I think this is going to be a series. I think it's a really fun idea of a modern gay werewolf series, and I did like the themes of friendship in this. I thought it was very cute, but the overall humor in it just got a little bit tiresome throughout. I feel like the same jokes were made throughout, and it just, I wasn't laughing towards the middle or the end, but overall I did really enjoy it, and I ended up giving it 3 stars. And the next book I ended up reading was The Last Word by Taylor Adams. I loved this book. I don't know why I'm doing this. I read this very slowly. I feel like I listened to it like over a couple of days, which isn't usually my thing. I usually can binge through a thriller or anything. I can binge listen to anything in a day. But this took me a couple of days to get through. It's not super long or anything. I was just really into it. I was enjoying myself. I really liked the main character. I liked the isolated setting in it. The tension, the creepiness. There are some genuinely creepy scenes in this book that I think would translate very well into a film, and it just that unsettlingness, I guess that's not a word. You feel very unsettled throughout, especially right off at the beginning, because you know you're there at the beginning, something's off immediately, right? Like, you just have to pay attention to the clues. Also, I got kind of those vintagey vibes from Taylor Adams stuff. Like, he has like he does like these noir things too really well, like Hitchcockian setups. I thought Hairpin Bridge was very Hitchcockian as well, where you don't know who to trust and there's limited characters to trust, and you're in like high tension situation. But yeah, I thought this was so good. I love the main character in this too, and I love like kind of an arc throughout, I guess a mini arc that happens within our character. I feel like it's just an off branch of like her bigger arc, but I was rooting for her. I was like, yes. So if you don't know what this is about a woman who is house sitting in an isolated area on beachfront. It has those summery vibes, and she ends up reading a really bad ebook on Amazon and rates it 1 star, gives it this horrible review, and this guy takes it very personally to where he comes to the house. Yeah. So that's all I'm going to say about this, but 5 stars. Definitely worth checking out if you like isolated settings. Then I read another new release thriller, The Only One Left by Riley Sager. I loved this. This is my favorite Riley Sager. I'm doing it again too. I mean, these 2 thrillers honestly like blew me away. Do they do typical thriller things? Yes. Was I hooked? Did I not guess? I wasn't trying to guess, but I was in it. I was just in the story because I was so interested. So this might look like an isolated setting. Technically, this is not an isolated setting, but it is like on these cliffs. It's this mansion on the cliffs, and it gave me like VC Andrew vibes. It gave me some Agatha Christie vibes. It had all of the vibes in this. So this is about, and this takes place in the 90s as well. So it's like kind of like throwback for him, I guess, because he rates more, I think, in the present time, mostly. I might be wrong. I'm just thinking of Survive the Night. This is much better than Survive the Night. Anyways, so this is about a care at home nurse who is kind of down on her luck, and she gets this job to take care of this woman who's like a Lizzie Borden situation. Like, everybody thinks she killed her mother, father, and sister back when they were in their 20s, which was in the 30s. So it has those vintage vibes because we get that person's point of view from the 30s, and then we get like the present day, which is the late 80s. I actually don't know. I feel bad. I'm like, I know it's not current though, because it had those vintage vibes in it as well. But I love this for vintage vibes. I loved all the vibes in this. This place is falling apart too. There's a lot of secrets, and there are a lot of twists and turns towards the end of this. There's many, many twists. But I felt like it was all worth it. You know, like for the payoff that you do get with this book. This is definitely a more character-driven Riley Sager than I've ever read. And the payoff and the overall arc of this character was so good, I think. And just had a very different vibe from all of his other ones, and it had like these genuine emotions towards the end. Was it still really cheesy? Was it still like kind of repetitive with the back and forth and you not getting all of the answers like immediately and stuff, and like twists and turns and like the same thing from his other ones? Yes. But overall, I thought it was just a really great story, done with like, oh, what if, just thinking off the top of my head here, what if Lizzie Borden, somebody had to take care of Lizzie Borden, you know, like just really interesting stuff. Because now, I don't know if you guys have seen any recent documentaries about Lizzie Borden. Y'all, she did not do it. Hot take. That is my hot take on that situation from like 100 years ago. But anyways, I highly recommend this new Sager book. I gave it 5 stars. Amazing. And then I heard this is like his last book through like this certain contract he has. So he might be like switching up like what he writes. So I'm really interested to see where he went, because I saw a lot of some horror stuff seep in here, like more emotional horror stuff. And yeah, I'm just excited to see what's new. Then I ended the month with The House with Good Bones by T. King Fisher. I loved this book as well. I feel like the last couple books I ended up reading this month were all like wins for me. This is a summer horror book about a woman that goes back to live with her mother in North Carolina, and something is not quite right with her. They're living in her grandmother's house, and she switched some things around and might start acting a little bit like her grandmother. And something's up with the garden, and yeah, it was good. I loved it. I listened to this in one day. Let's just say that. I got my loan in from Libby and I was like, yes, please. And I just binge listened to it like when I got off of work, and I ended up finishing it before I went to bed. So amazing, fun time. My only thing with this book is the ending felt very rushed. But I can see why it was rushed, because it felt like it's going to be part of a series. I'm like, is it going to be part of a series? Because I would totally read the next book to this series, because it's really interesting. Where this ends up going, what ends up being revealed, is something that I am very interested in, or I was very interested in my 20s. I did like a ton of research and like read books and stuff about it. So I am totally biased to where this book goes, and I get that. So this is probably not for everybody, but for right now, horror summerween read, yes. I love this book. I gave it 4.5 stars. I will definitely round up to 5 on Goodreads. And so that is it for June. Such a fun reading month. Let me know what you guys ended up reading in June down below. And yeah, let me know if you guys want to see any particular themed vlogs or something this summer. Hopefully I will be able to get to it. I'm working on just a summer horror reading vlog as of right now with Halloween decor hunting in it. But yeah, just let me know what you guys want to see over here for the next couple of months. And I will make it happen, and I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.